Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? This is Furgie here, back from A Squad Gaming, and today we are back once again on Forza Motorsport 6. Today we are still racing in the Super Street volume, but now we are looking at the U.S. Tour series under the Spocom car division. So this is a bunch of little sport coupes that have two doors and things like that. And really, the car I've picked here is one of the better in the lineup. It's going to make things a lot easier on you over time. This is the 2014 BMW M235i version, so it's a little bit faster than the regular 2 Series would be. It's got the M badge on it, obviously. It has a turbocharged straight 6 engine with 320 horsepower, very nice, and it costs about $44,000 or like 44 or 45,000 credits or something like that when you buy it in game. So it's a fairly inexpensive car with a lot of performance, and it performs very well in a lot of these races. It's one of the better choices in my opinion, and you're going to be able to bump up your drive-to-tar difficulty and do things a lot easier in this car, especially with a lot of these different kinds of tracks here in the US. So it has a 600 flat rating compared to the other cars in the division. It's either the same as or one higher. It's got very good speed and acceleration. That's one of its strongest suits, along with fairly kind of run-of-the-line handling and braking. They're not the best in the lineup, but the speed and acceleration, especially on a lot of these tracks with their straight lines, is really helpful, and it's going to get you a lot of passes in. It's going to make a lot of these races much easier. It has actually a 4-second 0 to 60, which is very, very fast, especially if we're only having 320 horsepower, and it has a top speed of about 200. We'll never be hitting that in any of these races, but nonetheless, it's a good time. So after covering all of that, you've seen what we're racing and you'll see where we're racing. Let's jump right into the first race here in the US Series at Daytona. Alright everybody, so now we are here for our first race at the Daytona International Speedway. Obviously, based on the name of the series, all of these tracks are located in the United States, and this is really a pretty good one to start off on. The two sides of the track are really polar opposites. They're extremely different. The first side is kind of what you would think of, with a lot of turns, not a lot of places to accelerate very quickly, and you kind of have to be performing very well with your handling and your braking. However, in the second half of the track, it's pretty much just how it looks here at the beginning. It's a straight line, big curve like you would see in a big Indy 500 race or something like that. So they're very, very different, and this is really the best place to take advantage of the speed and acceleration of this car, is near the end of the lap. So really in the beginning here, we just want to try to operate as smoothly as possible, make as minimal mistakes as possible, turn well, brake well, things like that. Try not to make too many mistakes, and probably try to get up into the top 5 at least spots of the race. This is one of the longer laps in the series. We only have to do 3 laps, and some of them can get up to 5 or 6. So for here, you really want to pay attention to how you're turning and things like that more as opposed to some of the other tracks, because you don't have as many laps to go around and try to improve on the mistakes you make earlier on and recover from things like that. So driving well is important on this, but it is a fairly easy track compared to some of the others that we'll be racing on, especially the very last one. The very last track in this series is my least favorite and the most difficult in my opinion on Forza in general. But just another little thing, the whole track is dark, but there are lights almost everywhere. I believe this is actually like the most lighted kind of sporting arena thing in the United States, so you can really see everything. The darkness isn't really that big of a deal, so I wouldn't really worry about that much. Other than that, here, as you can see, we're going into the big, giant straightaway curve at the end, and if you have good acceleration and good speed, you're going to be able to bring up some good passes. You're going to at least be able to keep up and stay in the race. So that's another good reason why this car means so much. Now, as I said in the previous video, with 6 different tracks in this series, I'm going to have to cut out some of the laps if not much goes on, or if really nothing's happening. If I keep my spot and it's just going around another time, I'm going to cut that lap most likely, because if there's no action, it's just taking up extra time. And I try to keep these videos around half an hour, and this is about an hour of actual footage. So I want to cut as little as possible, but still keep it within a good time frame. So if anything exciting happens, I'll leave it in. Other than that, really, I'm going to get rid of it, because I want you guys to stay entertained. I don't want the videos to be too long, so that's why I'm doing that. I'll leave the rest of this video to play here. We're on to the 3rd lap now, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alrighty, next up in the series, we're looking at a very short version of Road Atlanta. We actually have to go around this track 6 times, so it's not the actual full circuit. It is a shorter version, but it still has some of the more notorious curves that you'll see in all of the other versions. As you can see there, I'm bumping up my difficulty because I thought the first race was so easy. It really is an easier track compared to some of the others, so I wouldn't mess with Pro unless you're really confident about what you're doing. I am still able to place in the top 3 in a majority of these races, which is really the goal, but it is a lot more difficult, so I would be mindful of that. Now, really the only parts of this track that stay true to how it normally operates is the last curve and the second to last curve here, as you can see behind me. Really everything else is kind of just straight away with a few little bends here and there. A lot of short little S-turns, which is what makes this track so easy, because as we know, we can all take advantage of those. They're on Watkins Glen, they're on this track, and a lot of others, and they're really easy to take advantage of the drive guitars on, because if you don't drive them exactly how you're supposed to and just kind of keep accelerating through them, don't brake as much, it's going to be a lot easier. You want it to slow down. You'll get plenty of good passes in, especially if there's cars in front of you. You can use them to kind of catch you and keep you from going off into nowhere. So in the first couple laps, when you're trying to make good gains, make good passes and things like that, take advantage of these beginning S turns, as well as the final turn, which is another, not the final turn, second to last turn, which is also a big S. Those are the most important parts of this lap, and really you should be just fine. This is another very easy track in the series, and I really don't have much more to say about it. You guys should be just fine and get this on one of your first couple tries, so good luck. Alright everybody, we are now almost halfway through the series. Next up we look at Indy Speedway. This is obviously not the version with only 4 turns with the Formula A cars going around it. This is a circuit version with some more complicated turns and things like that. It is a fun track though. It's a little bit more difficult than some of the last 2, but we have to go around 3 times, so it's a little bit longer. But it is a good time. The last few turns on this lap are a little more important than the beginning of the lap. It's really just kind of a big bend. You go straight, as you can see here. We hit a couple turns and then we come back. But it's the end of the lap where you can take more advantage of the drive guitars and do things like that in order to kind of gain spots. At first, you're really just going to have to drive as well as you can. But if you do have good acceleration, as I've said about this BMW several times already, if you have good speed and acceleration, you're going to be able to take advantage of the other cars really quickly. As you can see here, I'm really already in second and a perfect position to get up into first later on in the race. I can't remember if I do or not. We'll see. But either way, you really only want to shoot for the top 3 spots, and if you can handle the beginning of the lap just like this and not mess up near the end of the lap, you're going to be just fine in holding on to that. The BMW operates a lot better than a lot of the other cars in this lineup. Really, it's a lot smoother than them. It brakes a lot better than them. It's got much smoother acceleration and things like that. And it's honestly a cheating car. You can also make a few kinds of adjustments. I think the only thing I've added here is a roll cage. I forgot to mention that earlier. You can make a few adjustments to it in order to make it a little bit better that won't raise its rating, so you can still keep it in the race with a little bit more of an edge. So I would suggest that, as long as you're not making too many upgrades to set it over the limit that you can have in this race. It's just going to make things even easier on here. So we're nearing the end of the lap. There is a really 90-degree turn right here, which is probably one of the most difficult on the lap. If you take this too fast, as I do here, you're gonna have a lot of problems. So just try to recover from it, and really that's the hardest turn on the lap. So anything else you can handle that, and you can be able to place in the top 3 even on pro difficulty. I would suggest pro if you're confident with your driving and you're in this car or another car that's pretty quick. Things should be just fine for you, and you should be able to handle this race pretty easily, just like the last 2.
Alright, next up we are on Sonoma. We've been seeing a lot of this track lately and a lot of the other series, not previously, but ones after this you'll be seeing Sonoma like crazy, a lot of different variations of it. This is a bit of a shorter version that, just kind of like Road Atlanta, has some of the more notorious turns included in it that make things a little more kind of like the track normally operates, but it is a lot shorter, so that's why we have to go around it several more times, 5 or 6 times. So really the end of this lap, like, it's kind of a trend in these races for some reason. The end of the lap is much more important than I mean, you have to drive well in the beginning, obviously. There's a lot of turns that you're going to need to handle well. There is a couple S-turns at the beginning of this lap that you can take advantage of in order to gain some spots. But the end of this track has a very sharp 90-degree turn, followed by a big old U kind of swooping turn that kind of reminds me of Sebring International. That's kind of what it reminds me of. So the last 2 turns are by far the most difficult on the lap, and if you're not handling those well, you're going to get passed up. You probably won't be able to place well enough. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of these S-turns here in order to secure your position, even if you do mess up later on in the lap, and that should make things a little bit easier for you. If you're not driving well in the beginning of the lap, you're not going to be driving well at the end of the lap. So keep that in mind. When driving, that you need to pay attention and maybe even brake earlier than you think you need to, because if you're sliding out of these turns, these couple last ones, things are going to be a lot worse for you. The other drivers are not going to mess up that badly. I mean, every once in a while they do, which is lucky, but if they don't, which they normally don't, you're going to get passed up quite a bit. So I would suggest on a lot of these tracks braking early. You might want to brake earlier than even you're told to. If you're using the driving assist, the braking assist, like you can see here,
Brake earlier than you're even told to sometimes, and do not go the wrong way on this turn. I believe I do this twice in this race or in another race. It's hard to tell which direction to go there because different variations of the track have you go left or right, and the cones are very kind of hard to see. It's kind of confusing. So if you go left, you're going to have a much harder time. You're not actually supposed to go that way, so you either have to turn around or take it's like a 120-degree backwards turn back into the race. So make sure you're going right there. There's the final U-turn, and if you can handle both of those turns fine, you should be well off on this race and working into the final 2 races. Prepare yourself though, because these 2 get a lot more difficult and they might take you a few tries. Alright, for our our 5th race, 5th out of 6 race, we are at Road America, and I don't have a lot to say about this track. It is pretty normal. It's kind of a hybrid of several of the other races in this lineup. We have to go around 4 times, so it's a fairly average sized lap, and there's not too many difficult things about it. The final turn is kind of a big C-shaped U-turn that you can accelerate through and brake. If you kind of watch your acceleration, you can kind of coast through it and things like that. That's a good place to pass, along with a couple of the other turns on here, but nothing really stands out as, oh, this is the best spot you can take advantage of, this is the best turn to hit correctly and things like that. There's not a lot you can do there. I would just say drive as well as you can around this entire track all 4 times, and you should be just fine. There are some sharper turns. This one is pretty sharp, as well as there are 2, 3, 4 block turns proceeding right after this. So some of the turns are a little more difficult than you might see. Usually you have to slow down a lot more. Again, brake early, and you should be able to take them just fine. Especially on the first couple laps, use other cars to your advantage. Bump them off, send them out of the race, and use them if you're going too fast and you're going to run into a wall or run off the track. Then you can brake into them, and that will help out a lot. But if you pull out in front or the racers start getting separated, you're going to really need to rely on yourself. That turn right there, that one you just saw me hit, you can actually cut closer than the actual street. There is that little thing to keep you from driving right over it that you'll catch a little bit of air on, but it still is going to cut some time off your lap, and you might be able to get a few passes in as well. So I would look to take advantage of some of those block turns. You can also do it on this one or any other one that kind of has a little more inside track on the turn, especially if you slow down even more. This one, I guess, isn't the best example, but the last one before this is one of the best turns to take advantage of in the race. This final turn here, it's kind of interesting how this operates. If you're doing it correctly, you're not going fast enough, you can kind of coast it. You don't have to brake as much as you think, or you can even accelerate through it. It just kind of depends. Make sure you're not falling into the grass, and you should be just fine. I'm in 5th here, but if I can get up a couple more spots and take advantage of those turns, I should be able to get back into the top 3 spots and move on to the next race. So I think that's just about it for this track. Good luck. Drive well. Alrighty, now on to the final sixth notorious track. This is the Mazda Raceway Laguna, and looking over my recording of this series, this race is actually half of the recording. It's about an hour and a half long, and half of it is me attempting to get in the top 3 spots in this race. Yes, I could have moved the driver difficulty down. I think I might have at one point, actually, and it is still extremely difficult. That's why you saw that cut there. Just cutting to my 18th attempt. This is a very difficult race, and for some reason for me, it's just a lot harder than several others. There are kind of 2 tracks in this game that are the most difficult for me, and this is one of them. It starts off, well, just to start off with, there's sand everywhere. It's not grass, there's not extra concrete, and the sand is brutal. You're not going to be able to accelerate through it, you're not going to be able to turn through it. You have to stay on the street, so no cheating whatsoever there. The first turn is very difficult to hit. Even if you have other cars with you, sometimes you might mess up, even on the first lap. And as you progress through the lap, things just get harder and harder. There are not many places at all to kind of cheat the drivatars, to cut off corners and things like that, because there's just sand everywhere. And the turns themselves are also very, very difficult. As we near the end of the lap, we're in about the middle here, as we near the end of the lap, things get even harder. I'm very happy we only have to go around this 3 times, because if it was 4, I'd probably even have a higher chance of screwing up. But I would just suggest, you know, this is going to take you a few tries. Unless you're a legend, and you're better than me, I accept that. But if you can do this on your first try, you probably should be driving an unbeatable, because I absolutely despise this track. It is very difficult, and it's going to take you a few tries. It's going to take you a few tries to hit these turns correctly, not go too fast through them. Don't hit this one too quick, because I've tried that, don't worry. And brake as much as you can for these. You know, if you're touching the sand, things are going to go south for you. This is one of the few places where you might be okay touching the sand, trying to cut that big downwards corner right there. But other than that, you need to stay on the road, and you need to drive as well as you can. Try to get up into those top 3 spots. The end of the lap isn't as bad. The very last turn is very sharp, so I would pay attention to that. Brake early, don't go through it, and you should be alright. But as I said earlier, this is just a very difficult track, so don't get too frustrated with it. This is the last race in the series, so once you finish this, you will be out of the Super Street volume, and you can move on to the very next one, which is exciting. So I want to wish you all good luck on this race. If you can get lucky and get on your first couple of tries, then I applaud you, but it is the most difficult by far, so it's probably a good reason that they finished with it, because it's a lot of fun, but it's very, very difficult. So good luck here on the Mazda Raceway, and I will see you all here in a minute. Alright, so we're nearing the end of the 3rd and final lap here. I do feel like a champion. I'm in 3rd, managed to get all the way up to 2nd. The 2 guys are very close behind me though, so I don't want to choke it. Thankfully, I do manage to pull it off and finally get through this race after many, many tries. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you're still enjoying these Forza series. The cars, you know, I started off, and some of the cars you obtain are not quite as important, not quite as cool, not quite as exciting. But as you move on through the series and through the volumes, the cars get Very, very cool. I'm actually at the point in the game now where I get to use all the Formula A, Formula 1, Formula E cars and things like that. So it is a very good time, and I will be getting to all of those series as well. Things get a lot more exciting over time. The cars get cooler. I think this BMW is actually a very cool ride. So the cars are getting cooler here in the Spocom division. And again, I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you're enjoying all these Forza videos. We'll have more showcase videos coming out as well in the future. And I will see you all next time back on A Squad Gaming.
Congratulations. You've mastered the performance of agile, sporty vehicles. Now compete with the very best